Good morning, folks. Wow, wait till you see this. Look at that sunshine just hitting in that bench. I'm not going to sit there because I'm going to have the sun in my eyes all the time. And I'll just walk down the steps into a better position. But the sun is out, squirrels are about, rabbits are about, and everybody's happy. Great stuff. Okay, so let's talk the Pollyanna Effect. Does anybody know what Pollyanna is? Well, I'll give you a brief explanation. Over 100 years ago, a book was written about an optimistic girl called Pollyanna. And she went to live with her grumpy aunt. And Pollyanna was so optimistic that eventually the whole class of the story is she turned the whole town into positive, while her aunt continued to try and be completely negative about everything. And often people used to say, "You're too Pollyanna-ish," and you've got the Pollyanna effect. And it's really just being optimistic. That's what they mean. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's everything right about that. You've got to understand that. There's everything right about that. I get up every single morning. First thing I do is swing for the fence. Every single time. Doesn't matter if you're missing or if you're no hitting it or whatever. Swing for the fence. That's all you need to do every single time. Morning, Louise. Morning, Joanna. So don't be such a Pollyanna as how many times has someone tried to put you down with these words when you were trying to look on the brighter side of life. For many years, I've questioned that being a Pollyanna was a bad thing. It's subconsciously hammered into my head, I suppose. And it's all about positive thinking and how we see things. So it was reported that over 90% of us, of what we worry about, never actually happens. That's amazing, eh? Over 90% of what we worry about never actually happens. So why on earth are we worrying about it? Mental. Morning, Anne-Marie. This means that our negative worries are less than 10%. So this means that our negative worries have less than a 10% chance of actually being correct. If this is so, isn't being positive more realistic than being negative? Yeah. Think about your own life. I wager that most of you, of what you worry about never happens. Yep. So are you really being realistic when you worry about all the time? No. If you think about it, the important issue is not which is more realistic, but rather, why be miserable when you can be happy? Do we like being miserable? No. Do we often find ourselves being miserable? Yes. I'm in the same boat. Just because I swing for the fence every day, it doesn't mean to say I have the same... Everybody's got the same emotions and everybody goes through the same things. It's really all about how you react to it at the end of the day. If being Pollyanna-ish creates a happier world for you and those around you, why hesitate being that for one moment? So let's look at an example of two attitudes. Joan and Mary were both housewives in their mid-40s when their husbands suddenly died. Joan immediately took on the mantle of tragedy. For years she solicited sympathy from everyone until it reached a point where no one wanted to be in her company. She then had proof that a single woman never got invited anywhere. She convinced herself that she would never ever find anyone to love her again. And naturally, that was her attitude and her behaviour that she was creating for herself. Because her husband left her only enough money for survival, she decided that she'd have to live on that amount, since someone at her age would never really find a job. Morning, Sarah. She went for a few interviews, but with her lack of enthusiasm, she understandably never landed a job. Her negativity created a realistic life of misery for her. Mary, on the other hand, woohoo, a Pollyanna attitude after her husband's death. Following a short period of mourning, she picked herself up and started all over again. She was one of those individuals who truly believed that one can create good from anything you have. She too was left without any extra money, and she determined that it was now up to her and time to go out and obtain money for herself. Although Mary had never worked before, she was confident that a place existed for her in the job market. She had always done volunteering, fundraising, and liked it immensely. On the basis of her experience as a volunteer, she actually applied for an assistant to be in the fundraising department of a medium-sized company. Morning, Francis. Within 2 years, she found herself totally in charge. Throughout this period, she was feeling a sense of expansion and growth she never had felt before. Although she would not have wished it on her husband's death on her, she still missed him at times. She realises she had grown enormously as a result of having to make it on her own. Unlike Joan's friends, Mary's never excluded her from any plans. Well, why would they? She was always incredibly enthusiastic and had a sense of enthusiasm and exuberance to her life. The way she turned tragedy into triumph served as an inspiration to everyone, really. Her positive outlook created a very realistic life of joy and satisfaction. Nothing is realistic or unrealistic. There is only what we think in any given situation. That's amazing. Nothing is realistic or unrealistic. It's only what we think in a given situation. We create our own reality. What does this have to do with fear? Well, everything. Remember, to handle the fear is to move from a position of pain to power. Although both women had their fears, Joan held hers in a position of pain, while Mary held hers in a position of power. Joan's fears resulted in stagnation, Mary's fears resulted in growth. Joan still worries about not having enough friends, about dying alone, about running out of money. Her heaviness is omnimus. She truly lives a life on the left-hand side of the pain to power chart, helpless, depressed, and paralysed. Mary's fears, on the other hand, led her to raising enough money for her organisation, doing a good job on television and interviewing, getting a newsletter printed in time, and other successes. Her fears have a totally different quality from Joan's. She lives on the right-hand side of the pain to power chart, more power, at ease with her world, excited and motivated. There is absolutely no question that learning to think more positively will put you closer and closer towards finding your own power. So this is a stunning demonstration, really, of the power in the words we speak. Positive words make us physically strong, negative words make us physically weak. The amazing aspect of this experiment is that it doesn't matter if we believe the words or not. The mere uttering of them makes us our inner self-belief and believe them. It's as though the inner self doesn't know what's true and what's false. What goes into your brain comes out of you. Garbage in, garbage out. It doesn't judge, it only reacts to what we feed it. The words, I am weak, come in our inner self and they're actually self-destructive towards us. When you talk about the words, I am strong, it instructs your body and it wants to be strong as a result of it. What does this tell you? Stop feeding yourself negative thoughts. And I'll see you tomorrow at 7:30.